it's going to cost more money, and you're going to have these other trade-offs, and you're going to have less and less of what Americans covet the most, and that is freedom. Hi, welcome to Tenessa Talks. I'm Tenessa Audette. On this episode, we are going to go straight into what makes America unique, amazing, and welcoming to all. Before we even get into that, make sure that you like, subscribe, follow, and give a 5-star review because for sure it's going to be awesome. And you can even include a rant if you'd like. I am here with my friend Ericka Jones, who is a mom of 3 boys, so God bless her. She's strong and resilient.
I'm unwell.
Yes, and she's an amazing member of our community, does a lot, and most importantly, she asks me a lot of questions. Being an elected official, we do get a lot of questions, a lot of frustration from the public, and I want to answer your questions. I want to make sure that you know exactly who to be mad at in government because you should be mad, but you should be mad for the right reasons so that you could actually do something to affect change. And so we're going to talk about it. So
when Tenessa asked me if I wanted to join her in this adventure, this podcast adventure, I have a little bit of a unique perspective because I was friends with Tenessa before the fame, before she became city council member, before she decided to pursue government. So my ability to really go there with Tenessa, I get to sit on our couch and be like, Tenessa, why haven't you solved all of our problems? You've been in city council now for 2 years. What is going on? And I get this version of her experience and even just knowing her as a person that I think is unique to really our relationship.
Yeah.
So bringing that to you, being able to have interaction between 2 people who care about each other, love each other, and can have even just hard conversations in a way that's respectful and that gets to the root of it, I think is going to be really exciting for you to watch. So happy you're here. Please stay tuned, like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, please pop them down below in the chat so we can follow up in future episodes. I want to ask your hard questions, and no one gets the privilege of being offended.
That's right. No, you should count on being offended. That is something that I guarantee you will have in this process. You'll be offended, but that's good because that's how we learn. We learn by kind of slaying these sacred cows that have just been out there but are not actually nourishing us. So we're going to slay some cows.
And that was my yes to Tenessa is, Tenessa, I will come, I will join you as long as I get to sit next to you and really dive into these topics that I know more people like me, like you, who are genuinely wondering, maybe experiencing political whiplash. Those are the questions we really want to ask. Nothing cushioned in nice language or complicated terms, but genuine, real-life questions that impact your daily life. Okay, genuinely, you have been in city council now. I mean, you ran for office. You walked through that. You have a lot of history in government. Explain to me why we still have potholes around us today. Potholes, why we still are experiencing problems that we would so desperately, really, we elect our officials to fix. Help us understand.
Well, okay. Okay. Here's one of the things that you're going to learn about me is that, and this is because of my father, he never answered my question that I asked. He usually led with the long history and the foundations of how things actually work so that I knew the better question to ask so that I actually got my answers to my questions. And so oftentimes I will go to the bigger picture in order to sort of understand the micro level so we'll go to macro
You're
first.
doing context.
Yeah, some
You're
context.
giving context.
Yeah. And so I have been in office for 2.5 years. I have not yet solved everybody's problems in all levels of government, which is the expectation. Anytime somebody talks to me, they'll kind of weave themselves through federal issues, state issues, and local issues and wonder why this person who's in power or has leadership or influence hasn't fixed everything. And I will say fundamentally, I do not think that government is there to fix everything. Potholes, they are there to fix. As a matter of fact, the amount of funding that goes to fund potholes, you would think that there would never be another pothole in the entire state of California. But unfortunately, because it's a big pot of money, it gets siphoned off by lots of other things. And so it sounds good. You're never going to say you want less money going to potholes. So it's a huge amount of money, except that it gets taken by all these mandates at the state level so that at the city level, you're using that money for a bunch of other things before you're ever allowed to use it for potholes. So let's say you got $15 million for potholes in your city or your county or wherever. But then you get down to it and it's like it ends up being 2 million because they've mandated all these other places where you're supposed to spend that. Now, does that sound sexy and awesome, and does that sound like a solution to your problem? It does
No.
not. It
I'm
does not, because the solution isn't in the position that person is currently in. So all I can tell you is it's a problem at a higher level. So now we're going to be mad at somebody at the state level. And then they're going to tell you that they don't get enough funding. And so it's going to be a federal level. And so I think what it comes down to, so I've been teaching a class on the Constitution for the last 6 years. I teach a class called God and Government. To be perfectly honest, I teach it because sometimes a lot of Christians are a part of the problem because they're not educated enough to understand it. They know there's a value for their faith, but they don't actually know how that all gets interwoven into government and leadership and that kind of stuff. And so I've been trying to teach a class that rightly you understand God's role in the establishment of our country and just how our country works and how our government system works, because less and less are that information required for kids to learn in school. Less and less are we actually teaching how our system works. And so let's talk a little bit about how the system works. Is that okay?
Yeah, I
Okay.
feel like where we're heading is this sounds like already complicated and I'm sad.
Right.
Like I'm immediately I'm like overwhelmed and sad. Like I just want to know why my potholes are done and now we're siphoning money from the state level.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
explain to me, maybe you can explain to me like we hear all the time and I believe it that America is the greatest country on earth. But so explain what makes America so great from a governmental perspective. That is why people come from all over the world, why we're revered, is that we have this amazing
Yeah.
constitution and our principles and what we're built on, foundation of freedom. Explain what makes America the best place in the
Right.
world.
And I hear this a lot, and you can hear this on the news, like, hey, America, you're so rich. How come you don't fix this? Hey, America, you're so great. Why do you have homeless people? Why do you have sickness? Why do you have all of these things? And I think because we have a lot of foreign influence, in a good way, we are a nation of immigrants. We want all of these people coming, the best and the brightest coming from all over. I think oftentimes people get confused as to how it works. And so America, our Constitution, our U.S. Constitution, which is the longest standing constitution of any country in any civilization ever, that Constitution is different than all other constitutions before and after because it says your rights come from God and not the government. And so if your rights are coming from God and not government, it means government can't take them away from you. You have just these certain inalienable rights. Just because you're a human being and you're an American citizen, you have these certain rights. And so when you look at a political spectrum, so we'll talk about a couple things. So when you look at a political spectrum and you have left and right, if you're in America, you're like, oh, I'm a Republican, I'm on the right. I'm a Democrat, I'm on the left. In every other country, there is only a left. Every other country.
Yeah.
And those people from those countries will argue about that, right? Because the right is fascist and the left is communism. But that is only on the left side of the political spectrum. There is no right side of the political spectrum because it is run by the state. So your rights come from the state. They don't come from God. Now, they may recognize God, but that does not mean that's where your rights come from. So your rights are coming from the state, but in varying levels.
Yeah.
So how much involvement the state is involved and how the state is involved is how every other country operates. And so you have just a left side. So in America, you have left and right. And on the right side, your furthest extreme would be just no government whatsoever. You live off the grid. You're not paying tax. You're just out there
Existing,
likely alone because you don't want to live by any rules and whatnot. But that's the far right extreme. Is just anarchy. It's chaos.
Yeah.
Meaning that there are no rules. You kind of are self-governed. And so when we look at the left and right, people with a foreign influence or the foreign press, or which a lot of the media is influenced by, it's mostly the media saying like, why shouldn't you do this? Why can't you do this? Why isn't government fixing poverty? Why isn't government fixing education? They're looking for government solutions to all of our problems that are a lot of times social problems. They're not the role of government.
Right.
Because when America did this huge experiment where they decided to create a constitution where your rights come from God, where people were the pinnacle of power, not the state, not the elite, not some special class of people that were born into it or, had enough wealth to create it. It was that just your everyday American is the pinnacle of power. And then we have people that work for us that represent us. And I think that the balance of power has obviously shifted and it's gone off course. But America has a true left and right. We don't have that in other countries. So does government solve all of our problems? Gosh, I hope not. Because when they do, we have things like what we're dealing with the Department of Education, where you're taking in tons of money, but scores are not getting better. Kids are not being educated more. We are focusing in California, we focus our attention on the homeless. We've put billions and billions of dollars towards it, and it's only grown. So when government decides it's going to solve a problem it was never designed to solve, you're going to have problem after problem after problem because now you're paying money for this problem to become institutional. We are institutionalizing our problems by pumping money into it because that was never what government was designed to do. So the other part, I know you've almost fallen asleep.
I have
So
not,
let me
but
give you one more
but
thing,
I'm
and then
okay,
I'll let
deal.
you out.
Okay.
Okay, one more. What America also created, what they also created when it created this Constitution where it says that your rights come from God, not the government, and that people are the pinnacle of power, it created something else. It created a free market. So the economy and our form of government, our constitutional republic, not a democracy, our constitutional republic and a free market are brand new concepts and ideas to the world. So the world has many forms of government that it has tried through the generations and years and years and years. There have been other republics, things that have happened, but never before did they say your rights come from God, which means that the state is not going to control the economy. So when you have a free market, that's also a radical departure from history. It's a radical departure from every other country. So we can't really compare ourselves to other countries. But of course, people come from other countries and they're like, yeah, but our country does this. And that is superior and that's better because it's what we know. And I don't mean to say that America is superior and better because it does it this way. It's just that it does do it a different way. So you should understand that it does it a different way. Why is it doing that way? Why is it not doing it a different way? So that you understand it before you judge it. But we have a free market, which means that in the federal government, the more that they involve themselves in the market, the more complicated, more costly it's going to be. And then you have trade-offs that are going to happen. At the state level,
Yeah.
you start meddling with markets. You start saying, okay, we are going to charge you for this ideal, that ideal, this principle, this thing. It's going to cost more money, and you're going to have these other trade-offs, and you're going to have less and less of what Americans covet the most, and that is freedom. And if you have less of a free market, you're going to have more government control, which is going to cost the taxpayers more money, which is where we are in California, where government has become so burdensome that it's actually hurting its people. It's oppressing its people. Politics is a Greek word. It just means the affairs of a city. And what it is who's making the decisions. And in California, we've basically said we don't trust people to make their own decisions. The government will tell you what it is that you're going to do. And that philosophy is a philosophy of the left, to where people can't be trusted. They do not know what's best for them. They will not make the right decisions. And therefore, we are going to create less and less choice for them so that we can get the outcome that we're looking for by making choices for them. And as we know, that doesn't really work.
Yeah.
Is it working for you?
No.
It's not working for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do sympathize with I think about that and I'm like, well, it is true. Like, people do make poor decisions. I mean, I've seen a number of Republicans who I would say, I would trust you, or even even like people that are in positions that are not like nonpartisan positions, and they make really poor choices. And then all of a sudden you're thinking, how can I trust you?
Right.
So where does that leave us? Like, I empathize with that position. I also really want freedom. Like, I inherently understand and value and genuinely want to live in a free country. Like, I value my freedom of religion, and for others as well. Like, I value those things. I value my freedom of speech. How do we balance, or what does that look like? Explain to me how we can have and trust our politicians to make good decisions.
Yeah.
Because we want a system to ensure, we want the accountability to ensure that if we elect a knucklehead who's making bad decisions and everyone can see it,
Yeah.
that there's accountability somehow, or a mechanism to stop, or
Yeah.
does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think we should dive into that
Okay.
like deeper. You have kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
So many.
Yeah. So do I. I have three. I have three teenagers.
But
Pray for me.
they're so
Yours are
helpful.
young.
They're
Oh,
okay.
Teenagers are
I
helpful.
saw them.
That's
Yeah.
adorable. That's because you were there for 2 minutes. Okay. So the thing is we say, "Oh, we like freedom, but we wanna be protected," or whatever those things are. The fact is that the data shows, because we've been around for almost 250 years, the data shows that actually freedom, actually brings out the best in people. So the alternatives of more state control, I mean, you look at California, it is at its absolute pinnacle of control, and it's not working.
Yeah.
People are leaving for the first time. We lost a congressional seat for the first time. Like, it's actually not really working. And all of these states are sort of incubators of new ideas or old ideas,
Right.
tried again with new, better people. But these states are kind of an indicator of like, okay, if you want to go a little more socialist, like, does that work? They've tried it. Like, lots of different states are trying to do it with where they have more controls, and it actually just does not bring out the best. It does not create growth. It does not create more jobs. It does not create more wealth. We have 40 million people in California. So the fact that there's so many and our economy is so large, I think it distorts the fact that it's just not successful. It's like the potential is so much greater, but we are stifling it by trying to control all of it. And when the next two refineries leave, you're going to have a real problem in California when gas is $8. That's just unsustainable. Like, people can't afford to pay for that for groceries, because that will increase the cost of groceries, because transportation to get those groceries will go up. That is going to have a trickle-down effect that is very, very difficult for people. So, a lot of these ideas of we have made oil the enemy. Oil is a natural occurring resource. We call it fossil fuels, but it doesn't come from fossils. It is a naturally occurring resource, much like water. And if you start to tax it and you start to make it evil, something that naturally occurs, you're just going to create a lot of dysregulation to the rest of the world. To America itself is dysregulated because it has made a natural resource an enemy. Can you imagine if we made water an enemy? Where it's like, nope, water's bad for you. There's too much water. Like, it would be disastrous. And it is. And you can look on the global scale what we've done to control the climate or to stop, whatever the issue is at the time. Because if you look at human history, like, it warms, it cools, it warms, it cools. We're probably in a better place. We're greener than we've been before. All of these controls and it's the worst amount of CO2 emissions, and yet we're greener than the planet's greener than it's ever been. So so clearly, it's cyclical, and that's not the answer. But again, if government steps in and says, hey, we're going to control this, we're going to create this mandate, we are going to tell you how to do things, you are naturally going to constrict. And if you constrict the human spirit, you will get less from that person. And we know that in our children, right? So it's like, if I discipline my kids and if I create good boundaries for them, they're able to try again and to maybe hopefully succeed. Maybe they have failed at something, or maybe they got off course, or whatever. But if we can correct them and discipline them better, it actually gives them another opportunity to try again. If we overcorrect and if we over-discipline and if we shame or whatever it is that just naturally happens, not intentionally, but it happens, then they will try less. And this is what happens to human beings. It happens to all of us, since we're just large children, that the more that the government comes in and says, you have to do it this way, rules, 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 it really just stifles the economy. And we know that. We know that because we have the history of every other country that's socialist, every other country that has tried some measure of state control. And then you have America, which where America got in 250 years is phenomenal. Where America got in 100 years was phenomenal. We all started out for 5,000 years. We had the same level of technology of, fire and maybe a wheel and, those types of things. And then America, this insane idea where I'm going to protect your human spirit, not just to succeed, but I'm going to protect you in your failure. In your failure, I'm going to protect you to fail. I'm going to allow you to fail, and I'm going to give you recourse to reinvent yourself and try again. That is not going to crush you and end your life. You have the freedom to succeed and fail in America. And with that, created the most growth that the world had ever seen. We're the only country that never experienced a famine. Why? Well, because we actually protected freedom. We said, that's the highest value. And yes, there needs to be guardrails. And yes, your freedom cannot infringe on my freedom. And you can't murder me or steal my property or steal my intellectual property or whatever. And what that did was it created the ability for people to actually flourish.
Okay, so let me try and take that and put it in my brain. So what I heard you say.
Why would you do that?
Why? Okay,
What
so
does
what
that
I
lead
heard
you
you
to,
say,
though?
yeah.
But what is that?
Okay, well,
What's your
yeah.
next question that comes?
No, that's not even a question. It's what I heard you say was government's role stemming from this idea that no one can take away the rights that our creator gave us, right? So it doesn't even matter if you believe in God. America said, we don't actually care what faith you have. If you have no faith at all, we're just going to say that your rights cannot be taken from you based on our belief that God gave rights. Okay, there's that, period.
Yep.
So then from there, out of the birth from that idea comes this notion of truly stewarding a human soul and their story.
Yep.
So government's role is like really, it's almost like a gas pedal of like, if you go too fast and government oversteps, then there's the opportunity to go in a completely different direction with even just human experience, right? So like overtaxing, overstepping in and telling people what to do, all of those things like you're explaining with parenting. And then there's this other side that looks like healthy boundaries of keeping your rights safe from me infringing on them. So I would even say like, yes, murder, but property rights, all of those types of things.
Yeah,
You can't take from me, I can't take from you. Those are like healthy boundaries.
The founders came, the people that created this government came from a place where you had to be born into status. And they said, no, your hard work and your ingenuity and your ideas, that's a human experience. People have ideas that are not in positions of power to do anything with them. What do you do with those people? Like, those were those people. Those
Yeah,
people came to
right.
America because they were religiously persecuted. However, they came to America with ideas. They came to America and failed, and nobody was there to say, okay, you don't get to try again. They could just go try again. So they were, I mean, America was around from the time that people got there for over 100 years. So, like, the generation that came there was long gone.
Yeah.
It's many generations came, and then basically we're like, we've been living with some freedoms, and we've just been failing and figuring it out, and there was no overlord to come and to stop you. There was just so much space to actually grow. They're like, maybe what we believed is different than maybe what we've experienced. And so in our other country, we were told that this is a great idea because we'd always done it this way. I mean, look right now at all of the ideas that are being challenged in our system. And you're like, wait, why do I believe that?
Yeah.
Well, why do I just blindly think about this? And why haven't I questioned that? And there's just this upheaval of, does it have to be this way?
Right.
Right? And that's happening all over the spectrum with people trying to figure out in America, like, well, what is the right way to do this? And
Wow.
how should we do this? And it's like, that's what happened over this course of time. And then the people that were these founders were largely people that had been living in America with ideas.
I'm even imagining, like you said, someone coming, having an idea, implementing it, and then not having a government or a people group with more money, more power coming in and taking it as their own.
Yes.
And then implementing it for the benefit of themselves.
Or burning it down because their competition didn't want them to do it.
Like that is beautiful.
Yeah.
That you would be able to enrich your own life through your own creation.
Yeah.
Your own
Yeah.
ideas.
And many people ask me all the time what my faith has to do with my with how I lead and what I do. And I would say it is super educational and informative because I understand scripture, because I understand the Bible, and that is referenced, in our founding documents. Like 40% of it are these values that come from this Judeo-Christian tradition. I do understand the concepts, like the concept of, the Lord is for freedom that Christ set you free. Okay, well, you are free to choose what you do. You're not a robot. You don't have to obey the Lord, and you don't fall out of favor with God just because you didn't do it right this one time. So it's like taking these concepts of human beings. Like the founders basically said, we're not going to create a system that's going to be perfect and excellent. No. We're going to create a system that works with imperfect people. Like, people are not angels. Angels are not ruling men. So it's like you have to create a system that knows people are going to be corrupt. People are going to screw up. People are going to want power. People are going to abuse power. They knew all of that.
Yeah.
So they're not creating a system devoid, like, just for perfect people, right? So we hear it all the time, like, oh, well, if you're a democratic socialist, like, if you just had the right people doing it, everything would be okay. There are no right people. Like, there's just people. We're just people. And so I think that it's important to think about, like, when we are looking for government to solve our problems, what are we really looking for? What are we really thinking? We're thinking, this is overwhelming.
Yeah.
This is too big. I can't fix it. What's bigger than me to fix it? And then we sort of find ourselves as like, we're looking to dad and to mom, to the parents to like tell us what we should do and how to fix it. And we're looking to the government to sort of be that safety net to provide for us and give us food and give us shelter and give us, there are all these rights. It's like, no, none of those are rights because none of those you want to come from the government. Why? Why would you ever like we were my parents got divorced. We were on food stamps. We were very, very poor. Like that should be a temporary plan. And I remember my mom getting a job and being like, "Oh, but if I get this job and I don't get the hours I need, we're not going to have access to food stamps. We're not going to have access to, that this other money that the government is guaranteeing." But the question was, do you want to permanently be poor?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
the food stamps and government assistance is never going to be lucrative. It's never going to be enough to actually get ahead. It isn't going to you're not going to get a raise doing that. Like, but a job will. It's an investment. When you have a job, you start out low and then you can work your way up and you can get a raise and you get more experience. So by taking government assistance, you're just guaranteeing an entire class of people that are never going to rise to what their human spirit would have otherwise. Necessity, right, is the mother of all invention, including inventing yourself. So if you want to invent yourself, you want to grow yourself, which is what being a human being is, then you need the opportunity to succeed and fail. And if I guarantee you with a government check that you're going to stay in that place for the rest of your life, that is the government actually taking away your human spirit. That is actually the government taking away your potential and taking that away. Now, of course, this is 2025. So if you say one thing, it means you hate the other thing. I don't. I think it's a safety net. I think government assistance should be a safety net. I think there's people that find themselves in positions that need help, and I think we should offer that. But that's temporary. That's a temporary solution. I do not ever want to permanently take away someone's ability to improve themselves and improve their lot in life. So the role of government is really important. I think Americans don't know that. They don't know their rights come from God. When I tell people that, they're like, no, no, no. And they think other countries, it's the same thing. It's like, no, no, we have a political spectrum that's different than everybody else's. And what comes with that is a free market. And if you want to look at the states that do well, that grow their people, that grow businesses, that are right now the focal point of where people want to gravitate towards, they're gravitating towards those states that are not taxing too high and that create the opportunity for freedom to fail or succeed. And so when you want to build something, you're looking for a land, you're looking for a place where the government's not going to get in the way of you actually creating and growing. And that's what California is. We have stifled growth. We have said we want this to grow, we don't want that to grow. And then we are counting on the federal government to come in and give us money whenever we have a problem because of our mismanagement. And this federal government is saying, no, we're not going to do that. No, we're not going to do that. And so now we find ourselves in a place where, well, what are we going to do in California? Who are the people that are going to help us to get there? Heaven forbid there's not a supermajority and you actually have to rely on the Republicans that are actually there, which is the opposition party right now. If you think that it's just going to get better because you put more of them there, I will tell you that's probably not going to be the answer.
So how do you, as an elected official, or how do we as just citizens look to inform or regulate or even elect people who have an understanding of when to push on the gas and when to not, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think if we talk about just sort of forms of government and then if it stays in that form, does it do better or worse or what? I mean, I'm not sure if you've seen the news, like in Florida, they're talking about eliminating property taxes.
Like altogether.
Yeah, like getting rid of your property tax so that you can't possibly, if you own your home, you're not going to lose it because you didn't pay a tax. And then we're having this discussion on tariffs. And, previous to when the income tax was created, which
Right.
wasn't until, I believe, like 1913 is when you got the income tax, Woodrow Wilson. So think about that. Our government, we just had our birthday,
Right.
1776. I think the Constitution was ratified in 91. And then you have, in 1913 an income tax. So how was the government funded before that?
Right.
Tariffs, right? So it was trade. It was, if you want to come bring your goods here, and so you had tariffs, and that was largely what funded the government. And after you have this income tax, what you then now have, because you have such a large amount of money, is we started meddling into wars because we could pay for that. We started meddling and then deeper, and then now you have a depression. So what happens when the government gets more money, I would say, is never good. It's never good, because it then affords them the ability to reach further into the markets, further in and meddle into things that they were never meant to meddle. So is it possible that if you eliminate all of this burden of the public and all of these taxes, is it possible that the government will have to do less? Because I think, as a person who's running for office, of course I want to say to somebody, I can help you with that. I can help you with that. I can help you with that. But I think that most often what happens is they can't. They can just tax you more and do it for you. But I have to take your money to do that. And if you made that exchange, if they're like, hey, just give me 10% more of your paycheck and then I will fix the potholes, they'd be like, no, 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 no. Take that from somebody else. So it's like we have grown as a government. We have grown, our federal government, our state's government. Every time that you tax more, you do more. Those doing mores lead to doing more. It just doesn't stop. Like we've all heard, like a tax that the government has doesn't just go away. Once they tax you forever. Now your tax cuts go away, of course, but not your taxes and what they take from you. And so there's a reason for that, because once you give somebody something, it's very hard to then take it away. And so it's important to not give it to begin with. And if you're going to, there should be a very large discussion with the public to talk about, is this something we want to pay for? And how then do we pay for it? So do you want to have a welfare program for moms that, the husband dies, or, so something happened, like a catastrophic event that absolutely knocks you out, and now you have to have a whole new way of living. Like, I get that. I'm totally sympathetic to that, and I think that there's a place for that. But now it's much more than that. It's much more than that.
It's having much more.
Yeah, it's having 5 kids, and you get more money per how many kids. It's just a lot more, and that's a problem. That these work requirements, all this stuff that's happening. There's waste, fraud, and abuse, and then there's just the way that the system's been designed, and there's always needs to be a refresh, because it's just a bunch of people.
Tenessa, this is actually a great point, because this is where we diverge in some areas here, only because not necessarily all the way.
Right.
And we love each other. So that we're just going to preface with that.
Yes.
But I came out very strongly and publicly in support of a local tax. I don't mind. Not only do I not mind, but I genuinely want to give some of my income to locally funded measures that are what I feel like are specifically tailored to needs that our community has.
Sure.
That's one example. And I think I need to preface that, because I want people to know that I love you. We're really good friends, but I don't fall in line all the time, and you don't with me.
Right.
We have freedom.
Yes.
And yet we still love each other.
We do. We do.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so where do you land on that? I mean, I know where you land, but you can tell the people.
Right. So I think that when so we obviously have varying taxes. Local taxes is interesting because 7.25% is what the local tax is. A majority of that goes to the state. 13 cents per dollar goes to your local, like the city. And then another, I don't even know how much it is, goes towards per dollar goes to the county. But the majority goes to the state. So your local money, what you're spending here, what you're doing here, a little tiny piece of it, 13 cents, per 13 cents per dollar is going to come back to Reading. But what happens is that the state keeps creating mandates. Yeah. They keep saying you have to pay for this and you have to pay for this at the city level, not the state level, the city level. So you're paying your income taxes, and you're paying a sales tax, and you're paying for your car, and you're paying for the roads, and you're paying on your gas tax. I mean,
property tax.
You're just tax. But that money largely is going for things that fund state activities, and then
mandated state activity.
mandated state activities.
Right.
Sometimes you get local, sometimes you'll get a grant, but the grant is like what they want you to do, not actually even what the city or what the citizens would say is a priority. So it's like everything is out of whack. It's the state in Sacramento, a state of 40 million people, a state that is literally thousands of miles, and with all different types of people and all different types of communities, and it's always this one rule and one size fits all, and it just doesn't really ever, that doesn't translate really well. So for instance, in the city of Redding, there's a new rule about organics, and so you can no longer put organics in the landfill. So clearly, like the way that waste comes in, it's sorted in a certain way, and then that waste goes to the landfill.
You're talking like banana peels?
Banana peels, also your own human waste,
Oh.
all those types of things can no longer.
Who's pooping in trash
It's
cans?
organic.
Okay.
Yeah. It's, your dog.
Oh, that's true.
I mean, you know what I mean? So that type of waste now has to be separated. It can't go into the landfill. It has to go somewhere else. And so now all the cities have to pay to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
Well, and what to do with it.
Right.
So if it can't go into a landfill, if that's not its final resting place, then where is it going to go? And so, but the state mandated that, but it gave you no money to be able to pay to do that. And so you have to make a substantial investment into what you're going to do next. And that largely goes now to the ratepayers that are paying for the disposal of all of those things. And so it's, again, another tax. So they're taking your income tax at the state, they're taking your sales tax, majority of your sales tax. So there's many different ways that you can get more money back to the city, especially if the state is making those requirements. My preference would be that instead of giving us 13 cents, per dollar, that they gave us 26 cents. We double that. So instead of getting 1% of those taxes, we should be getting 2%. If the state is going to continue to force the cities to do more based on their mandates, then we should not be paying more as the citizens. Instead, the state should be giving up some of their revenues for us to pay for that. So when we're asking the citizens again, because yes, it does give you more money to pay for those things. The problem is that this is going to go back to the issue of who you're hiring to now monitor that money and where it's being spent. Yeah. And I would say that given who's monitoring, I'm not in support of what we're doing and in the iteration of the way that this new tax that's been put forward, that isn't how I would design it. And we can talk about details about that. But
that would be a fun thing to dive into, like a more in-depth. Yeah. Maybe not for our first one, but I think that would be fun to talk about and explore together.
We can do it. I would not be, you can do that. The need is there. We can't afford to pay for everything that we are mandated to pay for. However, there's a lot of other choices that were made that I disagree with. And I think that if those budgets were cleared up, and I think if we had a real accounting of where money goes, what's being supplemented by the state with grants, what is actually coming from our tax dollars, if we actually had a real clear accounting of what everything costs, then I think making that request to the public would make perfect sense. But I just don't think that we're there. So, if it happens, it happens. We'll figure it out and what to do with it. But it wouldn't be how I would design what happens. I would lobby at the state level for the state to give us more of our own money
I feel
back.
Like that should happen too.
Yeah, I think when it comes to taxes in general, America as a whole basically has said that people are the top. And the people have to decide what they want and what they want to pay for, right? So when you have a sales tax measure that is saying, here's what we want to pay for, here's what our priorities are, I think that'll be telling. If that passes, it says, this is what's most important to us, this is what we want you to focus on, and we're willing to pay that money in order for that to happen. That is as local and as personal as you can get.
Clearly defined.
Yeah, it is. And I think what ruins that is that you have the federal government trying to do too much, trying to control people way too much with way too many rules, with way too many, which comes with those rules are regulations and fees in order to enforce those. And then you have the state who are doing even more than that. The state of California has 400,000 regulations. Along with every one of those regulations mostly comes a way to pay for it, a way to pay for that institution to enforce all those regulations.
Right.
That you and I probably say to ourselves all the time, I didn't ask for that. Am I paying for that? Like, why are we paying for that? And then at the local level, it comes in this, unfortunately, in this form of these grants where the state, one size fits all, is prioritizing the priorities of our local city.
I see that in CSAC all the time.
Yeah, who's saying like, no, that's not what we want to pay for. We don't want another park. We want you to actually, you don't. We want you to maintain the ones that we have.
I want both.
No, but you can't have that. There's not enough money.
Well,
there is
potentially
not.
There could be.
But we Okay,
But this is what I feel like. This
and
is
that's
what
the
when I
argument.
come into and I say, I think I could do better.
Right. Well, and this is the
I
thing.
feel like put me in, coach. Put me
Well,
in, coach. But
yeah,
I get it. That's
well,
what's so
then you
frustrating.
lose 13 cops.
Yeah,
And then
that is the crux.
and then you have people on businesses and
Yeah, yeah,
vandalism, and your
yeah,
car gets broken into. People don't want to come visit you
yes, yeah,
anymore, and you don't feel safe, and you can't actually go to those parks anymore because they're not safe. They're not safe to be in. And so we can all want the ideal, but we actually have to work in the practical, and that happens at that local level. So to me, it's like it's not if I'm for or against a sales tax. It's like, is this what the people actually want?
yeah.
And they're going to tell you by voting. And if it is, is it specific enough that it is what they want? And if it doesn't, what are you going to do about that?
Right.
Because the issues remain. And what is the solution?
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do? And we can talk
That's
about
it.
that with
I
the
get
people.
it. Yeah, that is
gonna come down-
it.
Yeah.
It's not an easy one-size-fits-all issue. It's complicated, and I think that's what we're getting to with government, especially in your role. What I've discovered, being your friend, walking with you these last few years, is learning how incredibly nuanced this role of governance is, that it's never just one answer. It's never just black or white. It's so much more complicated.
And the reason what happens in other governments, which is what makes America unique, is that we can fail as cities, we can fail whatever, and it just keeps
we just keep going.
keeps going. You change the iteration, you
Yeah.
change maybe who's representing you. You have different ideas and you have different policies, and it all keeps going on. In other countries, when they fail because of whatever idea, usually they fold.
They collapse.
That's the end of
Yeah,
that. You know what I mean? Or they have to have a new constitution, or if somebody comes in, they want a whole new program that they're going to create, a whole new constitution and a whole new set of rules and a whole new way to do this. And so what you have in other countries is just sometimes just a complete new iteration. But in America, the way that our Constitution was created for humans, not where we want to be, but who we actually are.
Yeah.
And that means that we guarantee you to succeed and to fail. And is there anything more beautiful? Because we all want that for ourselves. We want that for our children. We want that for our families and our friends. We want them, if they fail, to get back up, to learn, and to be even better.
Yeah.
And that's what America is.
America is great. Greatest country in the world.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tenessa.
Yeah.